Hello, learners. You are once again welcome to Joy Learning Basic Classroom. Joy Learning Basic Classroom. Our subject for today is computing. Computing, and our topic is on generation of computers. Generation of computers. I am Mr. Peter Asamoah, your facilitator for this lesson. Now, most of these videos will also be uploaded to you on our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV. Joy Learning TV. Now, let's begin with our starter. So we have an image on the screen. Kindly watch the image. Then when you finish, we do some small discussion. Okay? I hope you are watching. Good. Right? So you have finished watching it. Now, let's discuss something about the image you saw. What did you see on the screen? What did you see on the screen? So you tell me what you saw. You saw a person. And that person will also say, I saw a person with a laptop. Very good. Okay? Then, I want you to describe the mood of the person. What was the person's mood? Was the person happy or sad when you watch the image? Good. The person's mood was happy. So the person was very happy. Good. Why was the person happy? Why was the person happy? So the person was happy because he was working on a laptop at the same time listening to music. So the person was very happy when he was enjoying the music. Good. Now, let's continue. We are going to look at our learning competencies or our objectives for today's lesson. By the end of the lesson, the learners should be able to, 1, explain the generation of computers. Explain the generation of computers. And then 2, identify the main features of the second generation computers. Identify the main features of the second generation computers. Okay, so let's move on to our keywords for the lesson. We have generation. Generation, and this can be history or evolution. So the history or evolution of something. That is generation. Then the next keyword has to do with transistors. Transistors. So an electronic component used in the second generation computers. An electronic component used in the second generation computers. Then we have punch cards. Punch cards. So these are cards with perforated holes used to make data entries. Then the next one we have machine language. Machine language. So low-level computer programming language consisting of binary numbers. Then we have computer. Computer, an electronic device used to make data input, process data into information, store and output information. So these are our keywords that we'll be meeting alongside the lesson. Now, we also want to look at the definition of generation of computers, the meaning of generation of computers. Right. Now, I want you to write the definition down, then later we compare. So kindly do that. Good. I hope you've written your answer down. Now let's see. When we talk of generation of computers, we are looking at the rapid change in the development of computers. The rapid change in the development of computers. So this rapid change in the development of computers is what is termed as generation of computers. All right. Hope your answer match with what is on the screen. That's very good. Now, we want to revisit what we learned in our previous class when we were in Basic 4. In Basic 4, we learned something about generation of computers. And we learned that generation of computers, we had first generation computers. We started from 1940s to 1950s. Then we had second generation computers, also started from 1950s to 1960s. Then we had third generation computers, also started 1960s to 1970s. Then we had fourth generation computers, also started in 1970s to present. And then the last one, fifth generation computers. This has to do with the present and the future. So in Basic 4, we learned these things. Now, in Basic 5, we are going to focus on second generation computers. Second generation computers. Right, so let's look at something about the second generation computers. Now, we learned when we were in Basic 4 that the main component used in the first generation computers were vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes. Now, with the second generation computers, the main component or technology used, was transistor. Transistor. So transistor was the main component used in the second generation computers. So the first generation computers used vacuum tubes, and the second generation computers use transistors. Okay. Now, let's move on. We want to look at some explanation of the transistor. When we talk of a transistor, it's an electronic component or device composed of semiconductor material that amplifies a signal or opens or closes a circuit. So a device composed of semiconductor material that amplifies a signal or opens or closes a circuit. So this component is what we refer to as a transistor. A transistor. Good. Now, we want to look at some images of transistors. Some images of transistors. So on the screen, we have this image. So these are transistors. Transistors. Now let's see other image also. We have another form of transistor in this shape. This is also a transistor. Okay. Then another image of a transistor. This is also called transistor. So these are electronic components. Now the transistor has three parts. The first part has to do with emitter. The second is base, and the third is collector. Collector. So a transistor has three parts. Good. Now let's move on. Now, we are also going to look at some of the components used in the second generation of computers. Some of the components used in the second generation computers. Now, apart from the transistor, other components were also used. And one of the components, we have magnetic core. Magnetic core. Now, magnetic core memory was the main form of random access memory for 20 years between 1955 to 1975. So in our modern era, we call it RAM. But in the olden days, it was magnetic core or magnetic core memory. Let's see the image. So this is an image of a magnetic core or memory. Magnetic core memory. Let's look at another image. This is another image of a magnetic core. Okay, good. Now let's move on. So magnetic core, we said in our today, it is called RAM. The RAM has to do with random access memory. So this is the modern magnetic core we use in our computers now. So this image you see on the screen is called RAM, random access memory. And these are the RAM or the memory in our modern computers. The next component in the second generation computers, we have machine language. Machine language. And we talk of machine language, we can also call it machine code, which is a low-level language that comprises of binary numbers. A low-level language which comprises of binary digits or numbers. And now these numbers, they are in the form of long chains of zeros and ones. Long chains of zeros and ones. And that is the language that the computer understands. That is the language that the computer understands. Now, let's see some image of the machine language. So whenever you see this, now you know it's a machine language. Always, it has long chains of zeros and ones. Long chains of zeros and ones. Then we have another image also here. This also representing machine language. So if you see any of this image in a book or anywhere, it is representing machine language. Now I want to look at another component of the second generation computers. And that component has to do with assembly language. Assembly language. An assembly language is a type of low-level programming language that is intended to communicate directly with a computer's hardware. So its intention is to communicate directly with the computer's hardware. Assembly language or assembly languages are designed to be readable by humans. They were designed to be readable by humans. Now, let's look at an image of assembly language. So this can be a screenshot of assembly language code. So this is an assembly language code. Okay. Now, we have another one, also a screenshot of assembly language code. Then we also want to look at another component used in the second generation computers. Another component used in the second generation computers. We have magnetic tape. Magnetic tape. Now, magnetic tapes are used for data storage in early computers, especially second and third generation computers. So magnetic tape, they are used purposely for data storage. Data storage. Let's look at the image of a magnetic tape. So this is an image of a magnetic tape and always comes with magnetic tape drive. So the magnetic tape drive will help data to be recorded on the tape. So the image you see on the right side is the drive. The whole cabinet is the magnetic tape drive. Then the next component, we have punch cards. Punch cards. And then when we talk of punch cards, also they have perforated holes and they were used to feed the computer with data. Used to feed the computer with data. Punch cards, usually they use a card reader to connect to computers before the punch cards could be read. So before we can read information on the punch cards, we need what we call card reader. Card reader. which will be connected to the computer. So these are images of the punch cards. Punch cards. Okay. Then we are going to look at main characteristics of the second generation computers. Main characteristics of the second generation computers. So the main characteristics, the first one, we are looking at the main electronic component. Main electronic component. And the component has to do with the transistor. Transistor. Then we have programming language. Programming language. We have machine language and assembly language. Machine language and assembly language. Then memory. When we talk of memory, we have magnetic core and magnetic tape or disk. So the next features or characteristics of the second generation computers, we have the input and output devices. Input and output devices. So over here we have the magnetic tape and punch cards. Magnetic tape and punch cards. Then we are looking at the power and then the size of the second generation computers. So second generation computers were a bit smaller than the first generation computers and also consume less power than the first generation computers. Then we have examples of second generation computers. The examples we have PD8, IBM 1400 series, IBM 7090, and 7094. Then we have UNIVAC 1107. Then we have CDC 3600. So all these are examples of the second generation computers. All right. Now, let's look at our reflection for all we have done today. Okay, what have you learned today? What have you learned today? I hope you have learned something. So let's discuss what we have learned. Okay. So today, we've learned about the second generation computers. And the second generation computers use transistors instead of vacuum tubes. Use transistors instead of vacuum tubes. Second generation computers were also smaller in size as compared to first generation computers. Smaller in size as compared to first generation computers. Second generation computers also consume low or less power than the first generation computers, and thereby they generated less heat. Less heat. Then we have the fourth one. The second generation computers use punch cards and magnetic tape as their input and output devices. Punch cards and magnetic tape as their input and output devices. Then the fifth one, they use magnetic core and magnetic tape as their memories to store data. As their memories to store data. Okay, so on the screen, we have our assessment task. Now, write down 5 characteristics of the second generation computers. Write down 5 characteristics of the second generation computers. So you write it, then you send your answer to our email, joylearningtv@myjoyonline.com. joylearningtv@myjoyonline.com. So this is where you send us your answer. Then more of these videos will also be uploaded to you on our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV. Joy Learning TV. Okay, now We also want to move on with our second lesson for the same class. That's Basic 5. Basic 5. Basic 5. And with this one, we have some image on the screen. Good. We have some image on the screen. I want you to raise up your hand and tell me the image, or you write it in your book. What is the name of this image on the screen? So the image is called System Unit. System Unit. Good. System Unit. Right. Now, let's look at our objectives for the second lesson we are going to treat. So the objective first, we are to mention at least 5 components. One, we are to mention at least 5 components used in the third generation computers. 5 components used in the third generation computers. Then we are also to discuss the main characteristics of the third generation computers. Main characteristics of the third generation computers. So the third generation computers were built in the year 1960s to 1970s. And now, during the third generation computers, we saw our monitor that has to do with cathode ray tube. Cathode ray tube. Now, we are looking at the technology used during the third generation computers. They use a technology called integrated circuit, or IC. Integrated circuit, or IC. IC was made from silicon and also called silicon chips. Silicon chips. Okay? Now, we have a lot of transistors placed on a silicon chip to form this IC, or integrated circuits. So the integrated circuits, we have several of the transistors to form this integrated circuits. Okay? Now, we have the image of IC, or integrated circuits. So this is an image of integrated circuits. Then we have another image of the integrated circuits. Integrated circuits. Then we are looking at some of the components used during the third generation computers. So they use high-level language. Remember, for the first generation, they use low-level. In the second, they use low-level and assembly language. But for the third, they use high-level language. We have Fortran, BASIC, Pascal, and COBOL, then C to be examples of the high-level language. Then a high-level language are languages written in a form that is close to our human language, enabling programmers to just focus on the problem being solved. That has to do with high-level language. So we have a screenshot of the high-level language. This is a screenshot of the high-level language. Okay? Now, we also have another component used in the third generation computers. We have magnetic core, and we discussed this in the second generation computers. Also, in our present time, we call it RAM, or random access memory. RAM, or random access memory. And this was the image of the magnetic core used during the third generation computers. Then we have another image of the magnetic core. So this is the current RAM that we use in our computers. Then they also use another component called magnetic tape. Magnetic tape. Now, they use magnetic tape purposely to store data. During the second and third generation of computers. And we have magnetic tape here for you to see. Then we want to look at the computer system. So during this period, we saw a whole computer system. A computer system consists of keyboard, mouse, system unit, and monitor. And then monitor. So this is a computer system. And we have the father of the computer to be Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage is the father of the computer because he originated the concept of a digital programmable computer. A digital programmable computer. Okay? Then the next image is printer. So this is also used to produce hard copy materials. That is printer. Then we have the main characteristics of the third generation computers. So we have main electronic components. We have the integrated circuits. Then programming language, we have high-level language. Then memory, we have large magnetic core and magnetic tape. Then we also have input and output devices, magnetic tape, keyboard, mouse, monitor, and printer. Then we have examples of third generation computers, IBM 360, IBM 370, PDP-11, NCR 395. We have B6500, Univac 1108, etc. Okay, so we are wrapping up our lesson. Now, I hope we have learned a lot, and let's discuss some of the things we have learned today. So you may discuss this with your friend, what you have learned today. Okay, very good. So we have this assessment task for you to do. Identify the following component used in third generation computers. So you have to identify the names of these images. You have A, B, C. So you send your answer to us through our email, joylearningtv@myjoyonline.com. myjoyonline.com. And these are some of the images also you have to identify. Now, more of these videos of this lesson will be uploaded to you on our YouTube channel at Joy Learning TV. Joy Learning TV. Now, Mr. Peter Samoa, I have been your facilitator for today. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Now, thank you, and always join us for these lessons. Bye.